Ladies and gentlemen, from the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace and Justice, Deacon Gerald Celente.
Hello, this is Deacon Celente of the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace and Justice. And boy, oh girl, do we need freedom, peace, and justice, because it's being destroyed in front of our eyes by the evil people that many look up to, called politicians. They keep stealing our money, giving it to their friends, called the banks, quantitative easing, give it to who they want, and war. Murderers, indeed. And the Ukraine war keeps heating up. And as I've warned, going back to February of last year, World War III has already begun. It's just going to be a false flag event or a nuclear exchange that makes it, quote, official. This is the propaganda that they keep putting out there. Again, we're totally opposed to the war. We totally understand why it happened. Vladimir Putin, afraid of coup, will retire in 2023, report. Former ally of Russian president talked about possibility of Putin might retire soon, rather than potentially getting killed in a coup. Let's go back to February. Let's go back to January last year. You remember how they were saying that Putin was crazy, Putin was dying, Putin wouldn't be lasting very long. Now it's a year later, and now they're putting this out. A source who was once close to Putin. A source? What source? Who's the source? Or are they making this up? Claim the president will nominate his chosen heir already this year. Instead of risking his downfall, the British Daily Mail reported. This comes after the Russian president's popularity is a free fall because of his repeated military failures in the war in Ukraine. Stop. Putin's approval rating ends 2022 at 81%, boosted by support for the war in Ukraine. This is by BNE Intelli-News. If anything, support and trust by President Vladimir Putin has increased since the war in Ukraine started at the end of February. Putin's personal popularity rating stood at 83%. In March, 15% holding an unfavorable opinion of his president. His popularity fell to 77% in September, but recovering to the end of the year, 81%. So this is January. 2 weeks ago, his popularity rating was at 81%. But this says, according to the Daily Mail, and of course, the former ally, pure propaganda, that Russian president's popularity is in a free fall. It's a total lie. It's total propaganda. And that's all the mainstream media sell. The new Gallup poll came. That people look at congressmen in the United States. How come they're not saying Congress people? Because they're only saying congressmen. In the woke world, should it be Congress people? Because how about the Congress women that rank lower than used car sales? And you know the second lowest one? Journalists. Because they're not journalists anymore. They're propagandists. Pure propagandists. Again, the Trends Journal puts out true news, facts, and then give you the analysis and forecast. So, we're not skewing the news like they're lying right here in the Daily Mail. He said the Russian despot will seek to give up power. Russian despot. We don't have despots in the United States that take us to war and lie us into war. You don't have despots in France or the UK that lie the people into war and take them into war. That's the language they use. So they hate. So they teach you to hate the other people. CBS facts behind, quote, the most bloody battle of Russia's war in Ukraine. This is Thursday, January 12th. Battle for conflict-battered Soledar in eastern Ukraine is one of the most ferocious of Russia's nearly year-long campaign, with Moscow desperate for a win. Moscow controls over 20% of Ukraine that they didn't possess before the war was launched on February 24th of last year. Over 70% of Ukraine's power and water infrastructure has been destroyed. And again, this was ramped up following the Ukraine's blowing up of the Crimea Bridge and the Russian Nord Stream pipe. Total propaganda. Russia's capture of Soledar would allow it to sell a much-needed victory back home after months of humiliating setbacks. What months of humiliating setbacks? This is CBS News. This is propaganda. Kyiv is losing the war. What? But news, UK and Poland conferred tanks to Ukraine. Tanks a lot. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, as his Defense Secretary Ben Wallace, work with weapons, including provisions, tanks. Quote, further and faster without support for Ukraine. This is the UK, where the sun never sets on the British Empire. Where the latest report came out when they conquered India, they killed over 160 million civilians. The UK with one of the bloodiest track records in modern history. Ukraine says it's 300 Western tanks to be able to liberate the territory from Russia's occupation. Why not 300? They're making this up. Again, all it is propaganda. All it is propaganda. You ready? This is the Financial Times. Russia set for rare success with control of key town. Propaganda. What rare success? They control over 20% of Ukraine. Then destroyed some 7% of its infrastructure. Again, Putin warned that they would escalate the war. These type of things happened. And they did. Where they bombed Crimea Bridge and blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Then they go on to say that Russia is unlikely to envelop the town because Ukraine forces maintain a stable defense line. Totally wrong. More propaganda from Financial Times. The Ukraine war has, quote, completely gone wrong for Putin. It hasn't gone completely wrong for Putin. It's gone completely wrong for the comedian that played the president of Ukraine in a sitcom, playing the piano with his penis, Zelensky, who was just again awarded, by global awards, on and on. That's just losing the war. The Ukraine war has completely gone wrong for Putin. How come they never said the Iraq war has gone completely wrong for George Bush? How come they never said the Afghan war has gone completely wrong for George Bush? How come they never wrote the Iraq war has gone completely wrong for Barack Obama, the murderer who's quoted in the book Double Down and saying, quote, "I'm really good at killing people"? His Iraq war, his Syria, his Libya, also brought to you by Samantha Power, Susan Rice, and Hillary Clinton, that destroyed Libya, the richest country in Africa, where people had more rights and benefits than most people around the world. And now it's at home. How come they never wrote that? The Nobel Peace Prize winner, quote, the Afghan troops by Barack Obama. How come they never wrote the Afghan war has, quote, completely gone wrong for Obama, for Bush, and for all the other murderers that start wars and lose them and kill people? Not a word about peace. Not one peep about peace. Only more war, only more tanks, only more weapons of death. And now the United States is training Ukrainian troops in Oklahoma how to shoot Patriot missiles. Patriot missiles, it's Orwellian and demonic. Demonic to call a missile Patriot. What if the headline read, Moscow training Iraqi troops to use kamikaze missiles? Oh, that would have been terrible. Afghanistan. Classified cash stalls Biden's midterm votes. President mishandling of secret papers. There's Trump's there, and this is fired. I'm mentioning this because they're finding more and more documents that President Biden was hiding. Biden's popularity was way, way down back in 2019 with the disastrous withdrawal of the American troops in Afghanistan and leaving behind scores of billions and billions of dollars of weapons, and saying that the Taliban was not going to take over Kabul, and they did. They took over the whole country. But people forgot about that after Biden ramped up America's involvement in the Ukraine. When all else fails, they take it to war. And as Biden's popularity fails, they're going to ramp up the war, and people will forget about the disastrous economic and geopolitical condition caused by the presidents of the United States, and particularly Biden right now. U.S. and China accelerate war drive against China. Biden hailed what he called, quote, remarkable moment in the U.S.-Japan alliance, and praised the current Japanese government, Kishida government, last month to double its military budget. Oh, the Japanese talk from law of the United States war with them. You're not supposed to build up their military. That was part of the deal. That Japan. Yep. And boost its defense capacity. Biden declared that the U.S. was, quote, fully, thoroughly, completely committed end quote, to the defense of Japan using all means, you ready? Including nuclear weapons. Is it that? Nuclear weapons. The end of life on Earth. According to the studies, if there's a nuclear war, we go into a new ice age. But don't worry, it'll only last 2,000 years. So all your people that are building bunkers, oh, you'll have a wonderful time. Just have to wait 2,000 years. And then on to the code. State Supreme Court in New York struck down the mandate. They're talking about the despots in Russia that the New York governor and others imposed upon the people to get forced to get vaccinated. Landmark ruling issued on January 13th. The New York Supreme Court declared the statewide COVID-19 vaccine mandate, the medical staff, quote, null and void and of no effect. Judge Neary also found the mandate was, quote, arbitrary and capricious. Despots in Russia? How about despots all over the United States? How about despots that force your children to get vaccinated? With Operation Warp Speed, gene therapy inoculation, and other deadly vaccinations. Citing evidence that COVID-19 vaccines do not prevent the spread of virus, undercutting, the basis of the mandate. Quote, in true Orwellian fashion, the respondents acknowledged then current COVID-19 shots do not prevent transmission. Judge Neary wrote, citing a summary of assessment of public comment that entered as evidence in the case. Remember the lies that they told us. If everybody gets vaccinated, we'll have herd immunity. 2 shots is all you're going to need. Neary wrote, a term which is defined at the rear of the entity, subject to change without a moment's notice, contains all the hallmarks of absurdity. It is no definition at all. Now they're saying some experts have called the messenger RNA shots made by Pfizer and Moderna to be withdrawn until new clinical trials can run, showing that they're safe and effective. And Dr. Joseph Braley, Louisiana, became one of the latest to call for a pause in administration of vaccines pending new trials. Fryman pointed to data, including reanalysis of the original trials that he and others conducted. They concluded that the vaccinations were at a higher risk of severe adverse events. They concluded that the vaccinated were at higher risk of severe adverse events. Oh, this is a conspiracy theory. No, because Dr. Vienna Webb admitted there's been, quote, overcounting of COVID deaths. CNN medical analysis and Washington Post columnist Dr. Leanna Wen, and I remember when was telling everybody to get vaccinated, how stupid you are not to, and everything that you should do because she told you to do it on CNN. Admitted in a column Friday The medical community, quote, is overcounting the amount of COVID deaths and hospitalization. The article is titled, "We are overcounting COVID deaths and hospitalization. That's a problem." Oh, but now that she's saying it is official. We only reported this in the Trends Journal going back when the COVID war began, and quoting doctors saying that this is a total lie. People are coming in with respiratory ailments, other cancer, other serious diseases, but they're being tested. Oh, they have COVID, so let's going to put them down to dying as COVID. Because the hospitals make more money. When began a caller? Saying, quote, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the United States is experiencing around 400 deaths every day. At that rate would be nearly 150 deaths a year. But are these Americans dying from COVID or with COVID? Doctor claimed that, quote, understanding this distinction is crucial to putting the continuing toll of the coronavirus into perspective, determining how likely it is an infection will result in hospitalization or death helps people weigh their own risks, end quote. And Robert Dretler, an attending physician at Emory Decatur Hospital and former president of Georgia's chapter of Infectious Disease Society of America, estimates that at his hospital, 90% of the patients diagnosed with COVID are actually in the hospital for some other. And it goes. So there you have. And protests, by the way, are escalating all around the globe. In Tunisia and Peru, 80,000 took to the streets of Tel Aviv over the weekend, protest the new government doing away with the judiciary and saying the politicians make trying to pass the law to do. One place after this is going down. And as the economies go down more, protests are going to continue to escalate. I read you the quote of President Joseph Biden saying that we will defend Japan with nuclear weapons. And there's no blowback at all from anybody anywhere in the mainstream media or the political system. Please do what you can to support the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice. Go to freedompeacejustice.com and give everything you can. Spread the word and tell everybody to please donate. We're donating for peace. If you don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. We'll have to do so much, and we're doing everything we can. We have to stop this immediately. We need a new direction of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, rather than continuing war. I'm giving you all the facts. I'm not making this stuff up. None of the religions, none of the priests, none of the bishops, none of the cardinals, none of the other, whatever you want to call them, are giving you the details of what's going on in the world and telling you how it's destroying your life and life on earth. Where are they? Where are they? Why aren't they doing it? Yeah, demonic people in charge, evil, satanic people are destroying our life, our liberty, pursuit of happiness, and life on earth. Nuclear explosion happened. It's on the way. Unless we stop. Thank you. Amen. Meaning with it.